With a focus on 6 different pillars in Budget 2021, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman proposed a slew of measures to help startups and MSMEs grow, including incorporation of one-person company without any restriction on paid-up limit or turnover norms. Finance Minister Sitharaman announced the encouragement of increasing the number of entrepreneurs in India by reducing the residency limit for any Indian to 120 days as well. Well, the budget has been appreciated from a lot of corners. A lot of, in fact, provisions have been made for startups as well. MSMEs have also, in fact, been the highlight of the government's plans and how to make them even more prosperous. Let's, in fact, talk to Alok Patnia, who is the managing partner for Profit Board Ventures. Alok, appreciate you being here with us. First up, what did you make of the budget, and do you think that there was any element that you found amiss today?
I think thanks for inviting me, and it's a budget which has taken precedence of anything over growth. So growth is number one in the minds of the government, and that's very good. The capital expenditure CapEx number which the government plans to invest is very good. So overall, I think the budget focuses on growth. The budget focuses on the long-term perspective, which is already was in circulation, and let's not forget that this budget is being announced in the backdrop of pandemic with massive health and issues, and also the global growth at the record low at this point of time. So I think from a startup point of view and from an entrepreneur point of view, what stands out for me is, in terms of, you rightly said, that one-person company wherein they have removed the restriction in terms of capital and also the turnover and also non-residents. So many times non-residents want to set up a company in India, but they don't want to get into a hassle. So this really helps for someone to set up a company in India with low compliance regime and see what's happening, and then maybe move to India completely. I think that is one part. The second part is in terms of decriminalizing the compliance in LLP. So there are a lot of provisions in LLP which had non-compliance resulting into criminal cases against the partners. So that has been decriminalized. I think if you want me to point one more point, then it's about tax audit, which the limit has been extended from 5 CR to 10 CR now. So that is also a big boost for small companies and startups, because they don't need to get into hassle of tax audits. And one thing which is in the fine lines of GST is they have removed the GST audit also. So I think these are the main points for entrepreneurs and you rightly said for startups to get motivated and incentivized to start more in India. There are other points also in terms of reducing the time limit from 6 years to 3 years for reopening of cases, setting up a tribunal centralized, a digital tribunal centralized thing for cases to be resolved quickly. So a lot of small changes here and there. Overall, one thing which I think which we need to really get into and do is frame laws for investing the capital gain into startups. So this law was brought in last year, but then the rules were not still framed, and that has resulted into many people not being able to use this provision. As I said in my earlier chat also, that we need to create startup as an asset wherein the Indian investors can start investing. So that is something which lagged into my mind.
All right, Alok, thank you for that. In fact, let me also introduce the other guest for our show today, Mr. S. Ravi, FCA founder and managing partner for Ravi Rajan and Company, Srinath Sridharan, independent markets commentator, Karthik Radia, managing partner for Mazars India LLP, Sandeep Goyal, founder and chairman, Mogai Group, Nelia Verma, co-founder of Primus Partners India, and Harsh Binani, co-founder SmartWorks, is also joining us. Mr. Ashwajit Singh, Managing Director of IPE Global, International Development Council firm. And last but by no means the least, Anurag Batra, Editor-in-Chief of Business World. In fact, let me throw this The first question to Anurag itself. Anurag, a lot of initiatives were announced today. You talk about the COVID fund, 35,000 crores for that. Infrastructure was also on the finance minister's mind. 137% increase in healthcare infrastructure. According to you, and according to the numerous chats that we have had over the past few weeks, do you think that the budget lived up to the expectations? Did it exceed? Did it meet? Or did it fail?
First of all, see, if you look at the stock markets, clearly the budget seems to have worked. If you purely look at the stock market, and we can ask our expert panel why the stock markets are up. But it depends on who you're asking, which sector you're in. Broadly, it did meet the budget expectations from the government and the finance minister. But I would say, because the finance minister over the last 2 to 3 weeks had said this is a budget for the next decade of India's growth, this is the budget for, India's century in the world. So the expectations were a little more. So I would say in that sense, it is a welcome budget, but there were more expectations. I'd leave it at that. And I'd like to bring in the experts who in some way have had some idea of what will happen in the budget in terms of working with the various stakeholders. Let me bring in Mr. S. Ravi first. Mr. Ravi, I would like to start by asking you what Vineet asked me. Are you satisfied with the budget? On what parameters does it do well, and on what sectors it still could improve?
So I would rate this budget as a forward-looking budget, because if you see all the spends and all the capex and the capital expenditure that they proposed, it's going to have long-term impact on the economy. And that is the creation of DFI, the introduction of an ARC, and then putting spends of more than 2 lakh crores on the roadways, highways, etc., and also propelling the growth. Because see what happens, we can't have a stagnant economy. We have to propel growth, and propel growth can happen only by expenses, by capex. And of course, we'll have to have resources, which again government will look at various options like overseas bonds, etc., which will come in as we move forward. So it's a great budget from that perspective. Compliance issues, yes, they have sort of eased out, and that is the second thing. What would I have expected more? I would have expected little more on the tourism sector, because that is a very key thing, and that sector requires immediate help. So they did address textile, but textile parks will take a long time to come. But tourism sector requires absolute attention at this point of time. That is one thing that I would have expected. Tax reforms at this stage, nobody would, after this very last year was very bad, so I wouldn't have recommended too many tax reforms and would have gone in a slow manner. So the only thing which I feel sectoral attention in some places still needs to be, has been sort of avoided. But they have carried on with the Atmanirbhar series. If you look at the PSU, what they are going to do is to keep only 2 PSUs in each sector and going to disinvest the rest. So that's a great step which was recommended in the Atmanirbhar last series, and they have taken it forward. So some of the things they have carried forward from the Atmanirbhar series, and also this great push towards capex is a
if I may ask, Mr. Ravi, the markets have responded positively, and again, sometimes the markets kind of factor in the future, and also sometimes there's no connect between what happens on the real street and the Dalal street, if I may say. But what is your assessment? Why have the markets responded so favorably?
So markets look at the future. So markets look at what we are going to, what is the roadmap for India, and that is one. Second, markets also look at what is going to come to India in terms of investment. And if you see the investment that has flown in the last couple of months or 4 months has been phenomenal. So markets know that these type of reforms is like, for example, the insurance, the raising to 74%. It is going to bring in more capital into the country. So market looks at all that. And I think the market has correctly reacted, because they know the future is this a structural reform that is happening. So just to take you back, we did GST then we had RERA, then we had NCLT, then we had the merger of banks, and then this structural reform that is coming in. So even the disinvestment. So all this is a series of chain of events which will give a good future, and that is what the market is looking at.
Thank you so much.
If I want to add,
Let me bring in everybody else in, and then you can have your chance, Let me bring in Srinath Sridharan. Srinath, your assessment, I know throughout the day you've been active with us on BW, and I must tell you, budget with BW was trending for almost 3 hours today, and we compete with giants in our space who've been around for longer than us. So give us a sense of what is your assessment of the budget, where does it kind of hit the bullseye bang on, and what are the areas that more could have been done?
Thank you, Anurag. One is the context of the Prime Minister's words a few days ago that there has been series of mini budgets all along during COVID lockdown, and this event today should be seen in context with that was very clear, very, very evident. So if we keep that in mind, all those who were expecting 1991 kind of Big Bang budget, they might have been disappointed today. But I think the context of PM's speech was very, very important. While the jury is still out, I call it the heal the society budget. I mean, we have been hurting, the society has been hurting, the economy has been hurting. Let's heal it first. I mean, then we can press the pedal on most of the other things. For me, a big positive has been to showcase long-term vision in infrastructure development. I mean, it is very, very important for the economy in the long term. Healthcare, I mean, we have outlay for the next 5 years on Swachh Bharat or the Swasth Bharat has been very, very important, and they've spelled it out. DFI introduction is a good positive, but I think we'll have to wait for the fine print because...
And Srinath, I was going to ask Mr. Ravi, I did not ask him, but ask you what then happens to, let's say, an IFCI?
So, what happens is, there's an era when all the DFIs got converted into IDBI, IFCI, ICICI. But India requires one DFI.
So it's an endeavor to build scale and solidity in that one DFI.
Absolutely, and long-term, long-term investments with long-term assets. That is what is going to make it. Actually, the banks, the NPLs that you're seeing, is because the banks ALM got mismatched because they went into too much of infrastructure. So I think the government realizes this, and they are capitalizing banks, but they don't want the banks to make the same mistake, and that is why they are creating the DFI structure.
Fantastic. Srinath, go on, complete. I interrupted you.
From infra development point of view, one of the asks will be, can the government front load those expenses? Because otherwise, it is not going to trickle down to the economy. It is not going to kickstart consumption. Today, if you notice, none of the market expectation that the tax deductions on various direct taxation buckets, some of those would come in. None of them were announced. So, which means that...
Yeah, but at least from a senior citizen standpoint, they were allowed an income tax exemption. They don't have to file the income tax returns if you're above 75. I think that's also a big relief, because a lot of old people are very meticulous, and if I say paranoid about filing income tax, including my parents who are both above 80. So clearly it's a saving of their time, effort, and it's a very welcome step, and it saves on their cost of doing this and also on their time and energy. So that may seem like a small tweak, but it has a big impact.
It definitely is a big impact for those stakeholders, but hopefully in the next 1 or 2 years, I also expect, can we look at removing taxes for people who survive on simple pension or the FD income as they retire? I mean, as a society, we don't have a social security net like a lot of advanced countries.
Srinath, also tell us, has this budget actually addressed the importance of creation of demand? Something that, which is in fact, it's at a pivotal cause for the economy today.
So not really. I mean, to me, which is what I said, the infrastructure spending, unless government front loads it, the money is not going to trickle down. There has been no additional savings that individual taxpayers would get from any of there is no proposal at all. So from all these counts, all these are long-term showcasing of intent. And I think, is it going to trickle down immediately? I don't see that happening at all. Is it going to change consumer or consumption? I don't think it is going to change at all. Just as a little contrarian view, I would probably cautiously wait wait out this week. As more and more details people understand, I would be skeptical when the stock markets are the same exuberance that it has demonstrated today. I mean, you can give valuation for the future, but how much of future? I mean, the future might be bright. It cannot be so bright you can't see. So you must have a understandable distance and correlation.
Srinath, we'll come back to you, but just to answer your question, there are experts on the panel, but we need to try and address what you said. The government, if you talk to people in the government and you see the budget, they would see the infrastructure push as creating demand, because infrastructure push will have a trickle-down impact on the economy, and in some way it is a demand measure, because building a roads infrastructure means work for companies. It means work at every layer of the salaried economy, and that may create demand. Because if the companies get work, it means more recruitment. It may aid the demand. So that's how the government may be thinking about it. But let me bring in Nilay Verma, Nilay, from Prime Partners. Nilay, your prognosis of what has worked in the budget and what more could have been done.
Thank you, Anurag. I just wanted to make 5 brief comments. Clearly, everybody has spoken about infrastructure. I think my first comment, and which I like about the budget, is the fact it focuses on basics. Basics of infrastructure and basics of social infrastructure, which is health, education, women and child development. If you want, I think capital flows to countries which invest in basic things, and to that extent, infrastructure is extremely important. I also say, Srinath, when you spend in, and I agree with you that you need to front load it, but when you spend in infrastructure, the person who, or the contractor or the laborer, when he earns, he spends most of what he earns. Unlike a lot of middle class who, even if they have a savings, they tend to save, and therefore from a consumption perspective, I think infrastructure spend also has impact in the short term. I think the second point to be, which is very, very important, is I think a lot of us started to believe, or the message that went out to the market was Atmanirbhar was all about being internally focused. It's all about being, import substitution and things like that. And I think the fact that the government has announced FDI of 74% in insurance sector clearly is a message that the government means reform, and it's not just going to look at how some may call a Swadeshi outlook. So I think that's extremely important for me. Third point that I would make, Anurag, is this ARC, and this is something that we have spoken about quite a bit, is extremely important because I personally felt that the current system wherein bankers were happy to take a huge shave off in a particular setup with and assets being sold at very dirt prices or cheap prices, I think ARC, if we implement it properly, can create more value for us. I also think the fact that capitalization of banks has happened will strengthen the message that it goes, and it strengthens the entire financial system. And the last point that I would want to make here is the fact that the focus has been not to tinker too much on rates, etc., because investors want stability. And I think that
they want policy consistency.
And Anurag, if I can also very quickly answer on the point that why is the stock market up? Clearly nobody has the right answer, but I would also say the stock market is also relieved at not finding any additional taxes, whether it's inheritance, whether it's a success and other of those. So I think it's also reflective of that comfort that nothing is there, it's business as usual.
Okay, we have 2 more guests to get preliminary comment. After Mr. Goel, let me bring in Mr. Sandeep Goel, who's an entrepreneur and works with other entrepreneurs, advising them on business growth. Sandeep ji, what is your view on the budget?
Well, despite the fact that I am in advertising and media, I think the one point nobody has made, and which I would like to make, is that there has been an additional 30% allocation to agriculture. Now, I see that as a very, very important driver for growth at the basic level in rural areas. So the allocation of 1,42,761 crores in agriculture, I think, is very significant, and out of that, a large amount of money, about 75,000 odd crores, has gone to the government's flagship scheme, the PM Kisan, and there's also major support, almost 16,000 crores, to the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana as well as the price stabilization scheme. So I believe these are very, very proactive and very positive steps, especially in the current vitiated atmosphere that we have. So I am seeing that also as a very, very significant and a very positive step that the Honorable Finance Minister has taken. I think this is going to give a major fillip to rural growth, which as it is sustained most of the growth of the economy during the pandemic. So Anurag, I see that as a very, very positive
Mr.
step.
Goel, there was also a couple of initiatives that the finance minister announced, which was one of them was a digital census, which is amazing, and the other is the pre-filled forms, where the taxpayer doesn't have to fill the forms will be filled by the government, and they will come to you. So this is something that happens in Singapore. And even if you talk about the census which takes place in our country, the last census which took place in 2010-11, that report on caste allocation is still not out. A digital census is definitely going to expedite what we are, who we are, where we are in a much quicker manner. That's also something to look forward to.
Absolutely, Vineet. But let's bring in Karthik
No,
Raja.
Anurag, I want Mr. Goel to answer my question, and then Mr. Goel.
I didn't catch the question, boss.
He's saying the digital census.
The digital census, what did you make of that?
It's a fabulous idea. I think, with all the drive that the government has been putting behind, e-governance and digitalization, I think it is a massive step forward. The only thing we have to look for is, quite similar to the TRP scams and so on and so forth. We shouldn't end up with, some of that data being manipulated. So those checks and balances will also become very critical in an exercise like this, especially when you do it the first time around.
Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank you, Mr. Goel.
I'm sure, see, the data in case of some of the measurement matrices collected by private parties, but I'm sure when the government is involved, there'll be much more trust and sanctity of data. But let me bring in Karthik Radia into the conversation before I bring in Mr. Ashwajit Singh. Mr. Radia, what is your prognosis of the budget, and do you think it's a budget for the next decade of India's growth?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a reasonably good budget, and I agree with some of the fellow panelists who have already made a point on several aspects. But from an Indian standpoint, we are a fast-moving country, and for the needs of a fast-moving country, and on a daily basis or on a rather on a much frequent basis, the country is changing. And from that point of view, if you look at the aftermath of pandemic and the direction that the government is in long-term taking, I think there is a very solid focus on the governance directionally, which I think is one very, very important step, towards moving towards facelessness. So, you had earlier facelessness on assessments, then the CID appeals, and now you see facelessness, even coming to the tribunal level. So every level which is under the control of the department, that is CBDT, except the judiciary, I think, and in the judiciary, obviously facelessness cannot work, it's earlier in time, but everywhere else the facelessness has been brought in, which is a very solid step. And when you combine 2 or 3 of the other areas, like, tax audits for digital transactionally driven companies, and the assessment limits for reopening the assessments to be limited to 3 years instead of 6 years, I think these are some very, very massive steps where the government has given very clear message in terms of direction that we are going to take. And plus in terms of the healthcare and infrastructure. To be honest, infrastructure is one such sector which is going to create massive jobs, and I think we see a very, very different outlook towards infrastructure, which is what our country needs the most. So I think these are the aspects that are very, very important in the current budget.
Okay.
Mr. Singh, your commentary on how do you see the budget?
Yeah, Anurag, in the morning, in fact, on another channel, I said that the finance minister is at a very interesting stage of, India's done very well in saving lives. And, we've actually, if you look at a cricket kind of an analogy, we've done what Pujara's done. We've batted it out and we've saved the match. But now we need to move forward to a growth-oriented budget and probably be a bit more like Pant. So I think that's exactly what has happened at the end of the day today, that the finance ministers, come up with a budget, which to me is not really a budget, because the budget really talks about 1 year, but this is more of a vision that the finance ministers come up with. And it's a growth-oriented vision, no doubt. It's something that a lot of people were hoping for, but the fear was always there that, there's going to be, huge taxes which are going to come in, and where is the government going to get the money from? Is it really a sustainable kind of a budget? So I think to that extent, the finance minister will be very upfront in terms of talking about the deficits, coming up with figures which perhaps seem reasonable in terms of high deficit and where it's coming from. But again, I would like to sort of, caution here that this is more an outlay beyond 1 year, and I would be very keen to see how the implementation is going to be rolled out, which is not really the finance minister's role, but the role of the other ministries. Now, when we talk about infrastructure, I'm particularly pleased that there's a lot of focus on clean water. There is 2.87 crores being allocated there. There's a lot of focus on environment, focus on Swachh Bharat, public transport, etc. But I'd like to also see how that and the other infrastructure is going to be converted into jobs in the short run. I'm still a little concerned about, have we been able to really cover that gap between today and say the next 6 months to 9 months? Because all this that we're talking about in terms of infrastructure being rolled and big ticket items taking place, that at the end of the day, when you have the trickle down effect, it's going to be probably a few months. And so that is one of my concerns. Otherwise, a very good budget in intent. The health sector doubling is extremely a good idea. To get vaccination, to create a special health sector fund, that's all very good. Because in any case, India has been one of the most spent health budgets. We need to probably look at more of mechanisms to reduce the out-of-pocket expenses as well, because that is something that's driving a lot of people to poverty. Now, the areas where I'm a little disappointed is that I don't think enough has been done in some of the income guarantee schemes. The same kind of allocation as the initial allocation last year has been done into NREGA. You haven't really had a real up in the PM Kisan Yojana. You've had more or less similar 5-10% kind of increases. Whereas perhaps these are required today. You see, you added on a 40,000 crores during the year for the migrant labor. Now the NREGA really ended up being about 1,10,000 crores, but whereas your allocation now in the current year is only 73,000 crores for that, which is fine. But we need to also keep in mind that, are we planning for maybe a second wave of COVID? Are we planning for a contingency? Because it's very good to show your intent, but it's just an outlet, it's just an intent. What is going to happen to the migrant labor? What is happening to the rural population? Where are they going to get the funding for right now? I would be happy if the infrastructure that we are talking about was in some way connected to schemes like NREGA, and that the infrastructure would flow through that really to people. So I think that's something I would have been keen to really see. Particularly pleased to also know that finally something is being done about these stressed assets, because today when we talk about not being able to get money for some of the social sector schemes, if you really look at the NPAs, they're far in excess of all the social sector schemes that we're talking about. So something really needs to be done and recovered. Again, on disinvestment, pleased that she's announced 1.7 lakh crores of money coming in from disinvestment. But we have to keep in mind, last year you'd announced 2 lakh crores, and you only been able to really achieve 15% of 7% of that. Sorry, 15,000 odd. So again, I would like to see a rollout of that. I am a little concerned about the fiscal deficit having gone up. You're already expecting it to be 6.8%. And normally we've seen that when the actual figures come out, it ends up being more than the budget. So a little caution there. Would have liked to see a bit more focus on R&D. There is innovation funding, etc. She has announced that, so that's good. Again, a little disappointed with maybe the education budget. I was hoping that there'd be more of e-learning and different ways of education. The education budget itself has actually been marginally reduced, in fact. And at the end of the day, I think I would be, I'm very pleased with the digital, the focus on digital there. And, when you talk about the national, when you talk about health, the National Digital Health Mission has already been set up, which was actually in between before the budget. So that itself is a positive step in telemedicines and looking at having digital records. So all in all, in terms of intent, I would really give this budget maybe a 7 or even a higher, a 7 to 8. In terms of implementation, I'd like to wait for some time, because I feel that even a mediocre policy, which is well implemented, is far superior to a great policy which is poorly implemented. So, but she's done her bit. It's now up to the line ministries to do their bit, and we hope that things are.
You're right. Srinath also said the devil is in detail. It is about execution, the outlays that we put in the past, utilization of those outlays, and making sure that there is a implementation of the intent and the vision that the finance minister and the government of India, included in Srinath's context of the prime minister saying that there have been at least 4 mini budgets intervention in terms of reviving the economy, making sure the livelihood go on, is also to be kept in mind that a lot has been done by the government in the last 10 months in terms of allocating monies to be able to help businesses who suffered during lockdown. I would say the only sector that was totally neglected is the tourism and the hospitality sector. I was hoping it would have something for them, especially now that the vaccine is there and it's a contact sector. Earlier, the government may not have wanted demand to come back in that sector, but now as the fear factor goes away, I would have expected.
If I can just add there, I would have also probably liked to see maybe some kind of a consumption incentive being paid. That's not normally there.
Yes, we need to ask that question. How do you get demand going? We did ask that question.
So because at the end of the day, we've seen that in UK. UK in fact gives you a rebate if you go to a restaurant there. And there are other kind of consumption incentives or something more out of the box that could have been thought of to try and sort of increase the demand, because we may talk about infrastructure, we may talk about reviving industries, MSME, growth, everything, but it has to really be the demand, and for demand you have to have money in the hands of the people, and you have to have spending as well by those people. So I think that's something that could be looked at.
Right.
Absolutely.
Have a fiscal budget of 5%, which is also quite decent fiscal budget. I mean, fiscal deficit, sorry.
Yes. Again, the government, the finance minister has to budget to balance a lot of things. They have to look at keeping the fiscal budget down. And I've been using a term for the past budgets of the Narendra Modi government. I've called them social impact budgets. By definition, budget should be about social impact. But I think Srinath has used the right term. It's a budget for healing the society. It is a social impact budget. I said before on the show that it will continue to be the theme that we've seen over the last 6 budgets. So in that sense, it is in line with those. Alok, you wanted to say something about the startup policy. Why don't you say that? Then we move into the second leg.
Yeah, hi. So in terms of startup policy, there is a provision which was brought in last year which said that if you invest part of your capital gain into a startup, you will get some exemptions. But more needs to be done on that. That was the point which I was referring to. And also on the stock market thing, I think it's more of a euphoria. And also, as someone said in the panel, that stock market was very worried in terms of new taxes which may come in, because it's very easy to put taxes on the stock market and online transactions. So I think because of that has happened, it's more of a euphoria. And let's see what will happen in the future in terms of FDI coming in. Does the FIIs come in and start investing again at this valuation?
Okay. Let me bring in Mr. Ravi again into the conversation. Mr. S. Ravi, one of the biggest demands have been how do you kind of kickstart the circulation of money in the economy? How do you kickstart the financial services sector, which in some way kind of powers everything else, the SMEs, the startups? So do you think the budget would be able to address kind of the financial services industry? How would you rate that? And please explain why do you say what you say?
So DFI and ARC, those things have come in. The structural part has come in. And last year we have seen the mergers of banks. And we are going to see 2 disinvestments of banks also. That is what is proposed. So this is as far as the overall overview is there. But let us understand the basics. Are we still lending? We are not lending. Is the decision making happening? It is not happening. And that is the key. And I think here the budget cannot tell anybody to implement, but the government policy must clearly help in decision making. Today, Air India has not been disinvested for nearly 1.5 years. LIC IPO, which was announced in the last budget, has not is being pushed through this year. So the decision-making process, and Ashwini very clearly articulated about implementation. So decision-making and implementation and enabling decision-making. How to protect people for decisions, how to augment decision-making, and what is the matrix for decision-making. I think that needs to be streamlined on the ground. And banks at this point, if you see, even today, if you look at the structural aspects of the banks, today banks don't have independent directors. Most of the banks. And today there are EDs, executive directors, who are not appointed. I think these are the things which will make the decision making stronger.
But Mr. Ravi, I did hear the finance minister mention the word privatization. I have seen a lot of budget speeches, but I've never seen any of these finance ministers mention categorically, enunciate the word privatization. What did you make of that?
Absolutely.
And you know, if I
Mr.
may
Ravi?
also, Mr. Ravi, I remember I asked you 20 days before the budget, and you said if they did something to the textile sector, it would be nice. If they did something to the solar sector, it would be nice. Both those sectors have been addressed. Now, textile is also a big employer. And also, when we talk of Atmanirbhar, you know, textiles is one industry where we were truly Atmanirbhar in the past, and we can be Atmanirbhar in the future. So, give us a sense of these two sectors, and I would bring some other sectors and these sectors to the other corners. But
Mr. Singh, I did mention about the finance minister bringing in the privatization concept, the disinvestment concept, you know, which is perhaps a term which is very relatively new, to budget speeches. What did you make of that?
I think that itself was a very clear message that he this time, because disinvestment is really, in some ways, could be looked at that, okay, we give out some shares, but, you know, we still want to sort of, keep control, as well as, you know, it's a different meaning really. So I think it was a very positive step, and to me that showed clarity in her intent, and this time around she definitely does want private capital as well as private expertise to come into some of these sectors. I mean, take the example of Air India, for instance. Now, you know, nobody will want to be into Air India if it's just disinvestment and it's running the same way that it's been running for years. But yes, people will want to come in if it's some kind of a privatization, including, you know, management of Air India. So I think that was a very clear message that she gave out. Absolutely.
And you know, we have Harsh Binani. He's a young startup founder. Let me bring him into the conversation. Harsh, again, Mr. Patnia talked about the impetus to the startup. What is your sense? How does it impact your company, your sector? And as a startup founder, how do you see the budget?
Sure, no. Good evening to all esteemed colleagues, and thank you, Dr. Batra, for having me. So I'll not largely cover the macro aspects because, you know, obviously a lot of that has been covered. But specifically, I want to comment on 3 issues which really affect us and the startup ecosystem at large. Particularly, number 1, the government's thrust on digitization and some of the additional funds that they've actually outlaid, whether it's about creating the fintech hub, in Ahmedabad, or for the matter, spending a lot of money on digital census. That will actually give a major fillip to creating a lot of new digital startups, which definitely will have a massive multiplier effect. Now, specifically talking about real estate sector, because again, our startup is in that sector, real estate services, there are several positive moves, particularly around the exemption on TDS for REITs, which will open up a lot of window for real estate developers to invest more in creating and completing projects. And definitely, while we would have expected more on the real estate sector, particularly in co-working space sector, to get tax breaks, etc. But having said that, there are positive moves, particularly on the real estate sector, which definitely should be appreciated. And particularly on the last piece, right, which is around the broader startup ecosystem. A lot of those moves that Dr. Sitharaman covered today, maybe the details haven't been covered as much, but particularly things around one-person companies, announcing the tax holidays, and extension in the capital gain exemption gives a lot of confidence, particularly that the government is very, very eager to promote the startup sector, and we definitely would be looking forward to getting more concrete measures, particularly in terms of how will the money which has been outlaid for the government startup sector spending, how will all of that be spent? But overall, I would say that, obviously the stock market has been fairly euphoric, but a lot of this is also to do with the fact that no bad news is also good news. People were expecting a lot of horror stories getting into the budget, and we really did not see a lot of that coming through.
And Nilay did say that there was a fear of that, and that's one of the reasons. But, big question that I asked to Mr. Ravi, and let me take to Srinath, Karthik, Nilay, Sandeep Goyal, is, there seems to be a credit aversion. We need to create credit, if I may say, openness. We need to incentivize credit creation, and, but there seems to be, if I may use the term, credit aversion. Srinath, what's your view?
See, I think it's also historical. Every once in a while, our credit markets in India kind of had a paralysis. Our debt markets are very, very shallow. And almost we keep playing this game every quarter, saying, is it retail lending? Is wholesale bad? Is corporate lending bad? I think at some point we'll have to stop there and say all kinds of lending are needed for a growing economy. It's as simple as that. And for example, the DFI setup is also a great conversation there, saying we need wholesale lending. From credit point of view, the market had slowed down even before pre-COVID. So it's not, I always keep saying, right? I mean, don't brush it under the COVID carpet. The access to credit had slowed down before. It was more from the supply side. And after COVID, it actually became the demand side issue, not a supply side issue. So to do that, it is all about consumer sentiment, and which is why I expected some kind of tax breaks, incentives, exemptions. I mean, as simple as saying that today, let's say for a housing loan interest, 1.5 lakhs is allowed as deduction. Could we have taken it to 2.5 or 3 lakhs a year? Which means there is more money in the hands of the middle class. They will go out and spend something there. Some of these have come in.
Anurag, we just have 4 minutes left now onto our program.
So let me bring in everyone to make one comment. On what do you think is the biggest measure in this? There is a slew of measures. We've already kind of panelists have outlined what is the economy. So now let me go to Nilay. Nilay, what do you think is the biggest game changer in the budget?
It was a predictable budget which focused on the basics.
Okay, you are saying that the basics were taken care in that sense. That is a game changer. You earlier said that there was no additional taxes, which also helped. So clearly, Karthik Radia, what is the one biggest game changer in the budget?
So, from a long-term standpoint, COVID was last year. From the long-term standpoint, I think the real effects of the facelessness that we had last year, remember how quick the facelessness has got implemented. August 2020, the rules were out. And now we are also talking about doing it at a tribunal level. I think this whole ecosystem of facelessness is going to have a very much good long-term impact on the governance and the tax collections. And that is what is continuing.
Okay. By the way, tomorrow our results of the Business World poll on what is the response to the budget will be out. We did a pre-budget and now we'll do a post-budget to see how the industry and the public both have reacted. Sandeep Goyal, what is the one biggest game changer in the budget?
I think the whole last year was all about negative news. What I loved about the budget this year is the general overall positivity that the finance ministers had. I think that itself, signals a whole lot of positivity, not just in the financial markets, but I see that also impacting consumer markets, because when the general feeling is that life is going to be good or going to be better, I think it's good for all businesses.
Okay. Ashwajit Singh, the single biggest factor in the budget.
I think the single biggest thing for me is that very clearly shown the vision that it's going to be growth and reforms going forward. I think I'd summarize it by saying that she had a choice to go back to safety or forward towards growth. Growth must be chosen again and again. Fear must be overcome again and again. And that's exactly what the finance minister and the government has done. Excellent in intent. Hopefully it will be well implemented.
Harsh Birani, your final comment.
No, I think a lot of what she said is no longer pipe dream. We've heard infrastructure and privatization so many times in the last budget. But just the fact that the LIC IPO will net government so much money and they can make it happen gives us a lot of confidence that not only is the budget well intentioned, but they will have enough resources and budget to actually do what they want to do.
Beautiful. Alok Patnia, last comment from you too.
So it's a forward-looking budget with focus on capital expenditure, creating infrastructure, and also in terms of creating more transparency in compliances and making life easy for businesses.
Okay, I think a sectoral analysis of how it impacts each sector will be the norm in the next few days. But if I had to wrap up, I'd say it's a budget that is a budget for making sure that there is policy certainty. It is a budget that links up what the government and the finance minister did over the last 10 months. It is a budget for healthcare. It is a budget for infrastructure. It is a budget for making sure that the financial services sector gets rejuvenated. It's a budget for the manufacturing sector. Textiles is one case in point. And last but not the least, it is a budget where privatization was mentioned by the finance minister. So clearly, that is something big on the agenda. The LIC privatization, the Air India privatization, the privatization of the True Bank. But to me, the biggest game changer, I would say, is the fact that, again, startups have been mentioned and there have been special gains for the startups. Again, startups have lots more demands.
All right.
It may be the year where you may see IPOs. So really, it's a budget that is really fight to say three words. It's about growth, it's about
absolutely
consistency, and it's about continuity.
Absolutely,
Growth,
Anurag, you've said it all.
Consistency and continuity are the three words that I'd use to describe the budget.
Absolutely, Anurag, you've said it all. In fact, let you have the last word. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this amazing post-budget debate.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.